So I have to ask about Ben Simmons, who is finally in the lineup. Is this experiment going to work?
First of all, thanks, guys, for having me on, as always. Early returns are frustrating, to say the least. I won't say it's a failure. I mean, it's 3 games. It's still so early, but it feels like it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back with Simmons, because you'll see one play, he'll drive to the rim, he'll back down a small defender, he'll finish with ease, and you're like, oh, like, this guy might have something. He might turn the corner. And then next possession, he'll pick the ball up at the 3-point line, look nowhere, and then have to kick it out and waste half the shot clock. So, I think some of it's rust. I think some of it is he needs to start adapting to the roster around him a little bit better. And, Steve Nash also needs to put him in situations to thrive. So clunky start is how I'll leave it. And it's been frustrating as a Nets fan because obviously it probably needs to take a little bit longer than we as Nets fans expect, but there's really no time. I mean, Kevin Durant asked for a trade over the summer. You got to start producing quickly or else he's going to get frustrated again. This whole soap opera starts again.
Well, the good news is we are only 3 games into the season,
Yeah.
but the bad news is so far the defense has not been good for Brooklyn. And I'm trying to think why, because it's not like they don't have guys who, can't play defense. Number one, Ben Simmons, one of the best defenders in the league when he is at full strength. But today we have a big matchup for the Nets going against the Bucks. The Bucks home favorites laying 3.5 points. A really high total in this one as well. 233 is the number that I'm seeing for the total. And personally, I'm trying to find some kind of edge here, whether it's Giannis going over his rebounding prop or just some kind of points prop, just because that Brooklyn defense has been so bad. But what's your read on this game? Are there any edges to be had in Bucks and Nets?
Yeah, I think any traditional big man. So, the first 2 games, Jonas Valanciunas, I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but I can just tell you from eye test. Jonas Valanciunas and Steven Adams each dominated down low. Both had well over double-digit rebounds. They definitely cleared their rebounding props. So the Nets don't have a traditional big man at the moment. They have Nick Claxton, who's actually playing very well, but he's more of a lankier, 6'11", closer to like 230 than your typical like 270 big man. And then Day'Ron Sharp is not an NBA big man at the moment. So any traditional big man, you're talking Brook Lopez, even Giannis, over their rebound props against the Nets, that's been the real reason why they're getting crushed on the defensive glass. Their defense as a whole, I actually still think long-term can be okay. I think it's a lot of still trying to find what works for Simmons on defense, but over rebound props on traditional big men against the Nets, that's going to be a cash cow until the Nets get a real big man in the trade market.
We're talking with Reed Wallach, host of The Early Read on Betsided. Also find him on Twitter at Reed Wallach. Reed, how much better are the Cavaliers going to be with Donovan Mitchell now?
I think that it's similar. Because the early returns are that they look good on offense. You're going to get that with Mitchell. He's one of the best off the ball or off the bounce scorers you could find in the NBA. Where does this team fit in the Eastern Conference? Because you look at Boston. I mean, Boston has come out like gangbusters, and they look like they are not going to have a finals hangover. So I think Cleveland can be good. I don't know if it's this year for them still, though. I mean, obviously off to a 2-1 start, but I think this is still going to be a team that's closer to the 3 or 4 seed in the East than 1 or 2, in my opinion. I still think Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly will probably round into form. Those 3 are still probably the best regular season Eastern Conference teams, in my opinion.
All right, Reed, let's switch gears to a little bit of college football. I feel like I've already seen you tweet out some of your favorite plays for this weekend. So what's sticking out to you on the college football slate this week?
Yeah, I guess it's a good segue into promoting my show, but The Early Read, it's live on Tuesdays on the Betsided YouTube page, The Early, and then Read, my name, R-E-E-D. So that goes live every Tuesday. So I'm, betting early in the market. I'm trying to get ahead of some line moves and stuff like that. And, and listen, we're doing well this year, 34-27 against the spread on show pick. So it's going well. And I guess one play off the top, I'll give you probably the grossest bet, but Cal plus 17.5 against Oregon is probably one of my favorite gross plays on the card. So Cal as an underdog is one of the best bets you can make under head coach Justin Wilcox. Those Cal teams with Wilcox as the head coach is, sorry, I'm pulling up my notes here, 23-9-1 against the spread as an underdog. When he's a touchdown or more underdog, Wilcox Cal teams are now 17-3 against the number. including a cover last week at 7.5-point home underdogs against Washington. Cal's defense is built to limit the explosive run and pass, and that's all Oregon could do. And we saw Oregon last week hang 45 on UCLA. They also needed an onside kick to steal a possession. UCLA defense isn't very good. Oregon still allowed 6.5 yards per play. Their team is bottom 40 in tackling per PFF. So this Oregon defense still could let teams hang within the number. So, 17.5 after such a big win, a top 15 win against UCLA, I think it's a really good, sell high spot on Oregon, and Cal could, get to 28, 31 points and stay within, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So Cal plus 17.5 is a really painful bet, but I think a smart bet.
Ooh, I love that. Love that. Cal's been great at home, and you went into all the details as to that's the toughest thing to bet, particularly in college football, when it's just not a good team and it's an ugly bet to make. But if it's the right side, it is the right side. Reed, what is another game that you like this week? And we got a pretty good slate, particularly in the Power 5 conferences. Is there a bigger game that you like, or do you tend to search for, hey, maybe it's off the grid a little bit and I get better value there?
For a Power 5 game, I love Kansas State this week at home against Oklahoma State. And there is some injury concerns with the Kansas State side. Adrian Martinez left the TCU game early, first drive, with, I think it was like a knee. It was some sort of leg injury. I think it was either knee injury. They haven't really said anything about it. So we don't know his status this week. Their backup is a veteran, Howard. He came in and was lighting up TCU. He then got hurt, and their third stringer was terrible, and then the game kind of got away from Kansas State. Howard came back in, so if he's going to start, I still feel comfortable with Kansas State as about a 1.5-point home favorite. Last week, nobody wanted Oklahoma State against Texas. They closed 6.5-point underdogs. Everyone was concerned about Spencer Sanders' shoulder. Now we're just going to forget about that. I know they won the game outright. I had the Cowboys in that game. But now you're telling me that they're about the same as Kansas State on neutral? I don't think so. Kansas State's rush offense is fantastic, whether it's Howard, Martinez, and Deuce Vaughn, who averages over 5 a carry, 100 yards per game. Oklahoma State, middle of the pack in EPA per rush, success rate. I just think you're going to have a letdown here on the road. Kansas State is, money at home under Chris Klieman. I just think this is a great spot to get a Kansas State team that, they lost to TCU last week, but I'm not going to overreact. A lot of things went against them in a game. They were up by double digits and had to battle some injury concerns. So I like Kansas State. If you want to wait for some more injury, clarity, sure. I like it at anything under 3.
Reed, it looks like you have been having a nice little football season in the college realm, saying 35-27-1 against the spread. Pretty solid for a league and, college football that sometimes lends itself to a little bit of chaos. That coming from your show page, the early read presented by Betsided. It looks like you have a play on Ohio State, Penn State. So enlighten us.
Yeah, I played the under 61. 61 is one of the key numbers in college football, so I'd say that's a number like 60.5. I'd like at less than 61, but I think that you're going to see Ohio State on the road against a legitimate Penn State defense. Maybe struggle out of the gate. Not struggle. It's still Ohio State. They have the best offense in the country on the yards per play basis, but maybe a slower start. Penn State's strength is in the secondary, so maybe more methodical drives from Ohio State. They actually play very slow, around 100th in plays per minute, so they're not running up and down the field. And on the Penn State side, James Franklin has in the past played competitive with Ohio State. He has some, upset wins at home against Ohio State. I'm not calling for an upset, but I think he knows with his quarterback, Sean Clifford, he's prone to mistakes. He's frankly not that good, 6-year senior. So I think he's going to try and stick it on the ground, go with the ground game and try and take the air out of the ball. So that's going to lead to lower scoring. So I think that Penn State could maybe hang close early, and then, as the game wears on, they run out of gas. So, a similar scoreline to Michigan, which was 41-17. I think you could see something in that realm in the game go under 61. I just think that's a touch too high for me. So, again, under 61 is kind of my play. Penn State's good inside the red zone as well, top 5 red zone touchdown percentage. So when the going gets tough and close, they hold for 3. So I think you could see this game go under.
Reed, what is your process? Because you've obviously had a great season thus far in your work for Betsided, and you clearly know what you're talking about. But I'm always fascinated when we have people on, like how they go about picking games. And, this isn't necessarily one of those, you have to give us 10 minutes on everything you do, but what is sort of your framework for saying, hey, I want to look at this game. This is how I'm going to look at it and how I'm going to bet it.
Yeah, I think really just comes down to matchups. Styles make fights. So, Saturday I'm sitting on the couch, I'm watching as many games as I possibly can, following box scores, doing my deep dive and seeing like what went wrong in these games for the team that lost, what went right for these teams in the win. Some box scores are a little fluky, and I write down on Saturday night, Sunday morning, here are the numbers I want to get into. Here are the numbers I'm going to want to see, based on openers or look ahead. I kind of make my own numbers, and then I see when they come out, is this way off for my number? I kind of, as you get further and further into the season, I kind of have spots circled, whether it's a scheduling spot or, a specific matchup I want to attack. And, that kind of lends itself to bets to make early in the week. And that's kind of the whole process to the show is, I'm betting these things on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So, we can hopefully get ahead of the market. And, the market, thankfully, for the most part, has moved with me this entire season. And, it's been some good results. So hopefully, keeps up, about like 5-6 weeks left in the season. So hopefully, it keeps up and we get into, into the green on the whole season.